Wow, this is a pretty amazing moment for me to be in a room with so many service design practitioners. As Alexander said, I started a service design agency called LiveWork in 2001. And when we started it, it turned out we were the first people in the world to be focusing our design efforts on services and to be naming this thing service design. There's one problem with being the first at doing something is that you end up being the only person doing it. And so for a few years, we wondered whether this incredible logic that we thought prevailed might actually just be madness. And it's only when I stand in front of lots of other people like this today that I realize that we weren't insane in 2001. Maybe we were just a little bit ahead. Either that or I'm here with 400 other insane people today. I left LiveWork a couple of years ago to pursue a very unimpressive career in a digital startup, in a data startup in London. And then more recently, I joined the digital design agency Method. Turns out there are two methods in the world, and I don't work for this one, who make very beautiful hand soaps. But I got a call. I've been at Method now for about 6 months, and I got a call from my sister a few weeks ago. She said, "Hey, Chris, Mum's really proud of your new job at Method." I thought, "Oh, that's fantastic. That's really brilliant. I'm really pleased about that." She said, "Yeah." She says she finally understands what it is you do, and she's a very big fan of Method. I thought, "Oh, even better. That's great. This isn't just pride because I've got a job for the first time in my life. This is pride because she actually understands what it is I'm trying to do to change the world." And then my sister said, "Yeah, she's telling everyone how you're the man that shapes those beautiful bottles." I was like, no, this is my worst nightmare. How am I going to explain to my mum that I'm not the man that designs these bottles? So, this is the company I work for. This is Method. Beautiful people in 3 offices in San Francisco, New York, and London. I showed my mum this slide in an attempt to try and tell her what it is I really do. My mum's incredibly lucky. Most sons bring chocolates and flowers. I bring her a sales deck from the company I work for. I showed her this slide. She said, "So do those people really work at Method?" I said, "Yeah, those are my colleagues." She said, "They're very good looking, aren't they?" I said, "Yeah, they are, and they're talented too." She said, "They're not going to want to put your picture up there, then, are they?" There's a dog in there. Jesus. So, anyway, I'm not really here to talk about Method or me or my mum. I'm here to talk about service design. And I apologize for the title, Are We Really Still Talking About It? What I really mean is, am I still talking about it? I've been having this conversation for 11 years now. The short answer is yes. So I can end the talk there, and we can all go and finish our breakfasts. Yes, we are still talking about it, but I think the conversation's changed quite profoundly over the last 11 years. When I talk about service design, the question most people ask is, what is it? And I've got to say, I'm really tired of trying to define it, and I think the pursuit of definition is fairly fruitless and unhelpful. If I am really forced to define a service, I think of it simply as something you pay to use instead of own. But in the past, we've tried to define service design, and I'm as much to blame as anyone in this. We've defined it as a new design discipline. We've defined it as a new design practice or a field of design. Now, over time, I'm not sure that any of those are necessarily true. The more time I spend with other people within business, whether it's in operations or marketing or product design, I realize that none of those things are necessarily true. That what service design is, it's a set of tools, most of which exist already in other forms of design. It's a process that we will have seen many times in other forms of design. But most importantly, I think the differentiator is that it has a point of view. Now, in the conversation we've been having about service design over the years, I think these 3 things have changed quite profoundly and are still going through a period of change. So the process for service design looks like a good design process. This is a process, it's methods way of describing a process, but it's a process you'll see again and again. It's, some people describe it in 3 stages, some people describe it in 4 stages. The stages themselves don't matter so much. It's the fact that it's a logical, sequential process that starts by understanding the needs of the users and the opportunity of the business. Then it moves into forming the proposition and designing the user experience, and then it goes on to delivering the assets that the service needs in order to operate. It's tried and tested. It doesn't differentiate service design from any other form of good design. And I've become critical of it over the last couple of years. And the worst case I see of this process is when people align their teams to it. And they create an insights or a strategy team who go and do some very earnest user insight work and then bring a clear strategy to the designers who then start to develop the user experience around it. The first thing they do, though, the designers, is they tear up the insights, the strategy document, not really, but kind of metaphorically, and they start designing the thing they wanted to design anyway. And then they hand over the designs to the delivery team. In most cases, it's a technical build team. They look at the designs, they tear them up, and go and build whatever it is they wanted to build in the first place. So it can be a lengthy process. It feels at arm's length with the user, even though the user's involved at the beginning. The users aren't involved all the way through. And it breaks teams apart. But I've seen a fundamental shift in this process, and we've been doing this for some time, but it's really only been clearly articulated recently in a book by Eric Ries, which is based on a principle called the customer development process. And it says the most important things in the process is this concept of iteration, of constant evolution of the working, and to build things fast. Rather than seek the inspiration from users and spend a lot of time doing that, you form a hypothesis quickly, you build something, and you test it with users. So you create ideas, you bring those ideas to life, you work with developers to code, make those ideas real, and then you focus on measuring the impact of those ideas with real users, monitoring the data. You then form insight around the data, form a strategy for how you're going to iterate the next version of the build, form new ideas, and carry on building. As I said, this is a process that we've been doing naturally, but hadn't really articulated. But it's really beautifully illustrated in the book, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And if you haven't read that book, be surprised. It's well worth getting hold of a copy. Another version of it, slightly more complicated, is The Entrepreneur's Guide to Customer Development, which is based on the book 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Gary Blank. That process, that fast, iterative build process, we're also forming our teams around that process, where we're bringing insights people, interaction designers, visual designers, and coders together from the beginning of the process, so that they're solving problems in the same room and solving problems over and over again in constant iteration. Because of that way of working, our tools are changing. So service design was founded on the best principles of user-centered design, and ethnographic-based user insights were absolutely at the heart of that process. It's one of our most important tools. I've selected this image. It's one of those images we've seen again and again. It seems that you have to take a really poor quality picture of people doing something boring for it to look valid. So this is one of the best. It kind of doesn't really tell us a lot about anything that's happening with those people. But I still believe in insights. Insights are really important. They're valid and they're valuable. If I'm critical of insights, though, the real value in insights doesn't come from the observation. It comes at the point in which somebody translates that observation and turns it into ideas. And it's that translation of observation of ideas where insights can often fall down. It means that we rely on that well-tuned intuition of whoever it is that's turning that observation into an insight, turning it into an idea. And that's a critical failure point. Anyone that misinterprets what they're seeing and creates an idea is setting the project off on the wrong course, setting the service off in the wrong direction. It's also high touch, which is great. It means you get real depth of understanding, but it's low volume, which has always been a complaint of the market research guys. And the reason for that is it's time-consuming and it's costly. It also takes quite a lot of management and support and cost to set up, and once you've gained your insight, we tend to have lost the people that we got that insight from, so we can't really test our hypothesis with them ongoing. So those tools, the insights tools, when we connect those with the process of building things much more quickly and testing them in the market, the nature of our insights tools are changing. They're becoming data-driven and analytical. This is a random selection of web-based startups that provide data-based insights into user interaction. And I'm not saying anyone is better than any other there, and it's not a complete set, but they're out there. These tools are free, they're easy to use, easy to set up, and they give us insight into how users are actually engaging with these services as we iterate them. They're not telling us necessarily what customers want. I still believe in doing some upfront insights. But in the time that I would spend writing a discussion guide, recruiting my 6 to 10 users, because we all know they give us 90% of the insight, by the time I've written the guide, recruited the users, conducted my interviews, synthesized and analyzed all of that data, I could have built a first iteration of service and got some real-time data analytics around the way people use it. Once I've got my engaged users and I've got the data in, I can then just hop on a Skype call with them while they're in service and get to know more about how they feel about it. These tools are making the design of services much more immediate with a much closer feedback loop. Here's another service design tool, probably, I think, one of the only genuinely new tools that service designers brought to the design discipline, which is a service blueprint. Really brilliant at helping us form our thoughts around how the service operates over time, how it operates over different channels and across different touch points. It really helps us orchestrate the relationship between those different touch points of the service. But again, if I'm critical of it, it's always a hypothesis. This is how we would like the world to work. This is our best case, and it's a guess. This is how we want people to perform. But people always perform in unexpected ways. And the service blueprint very rarely bears much relevance to the actual end-user experience. It also, whilst it's useful in the creation of the document, in helping you form your thinking, I haven't yet seen a service blueprint really be used operationally as something that helps make a service work. And again, those future-facing blueprints are being replaced with analytical tools that monitor the customer experience across the entire journey. This is an example of one that we built at Method for Nokia recently that monitors customers in every transaction in a Nokia store and can help Nokia analyze those points of interaction and how they can improve the user experience, understand where it is people want to go, what their flow is, and how we can nudge and divert that. So we've talked about how the process is changing and how the tools are changing. I now want to talk about, I think, what I consider the most important part of service design, which is its point of view and how that's changing. So in the beginning of the world, we had products. And I'm a trained product designer, as are most of the people that started at Live Work. And products just felt to us like they didn't quite work. They felt like they were environmentally unsustainable. Financially, they didn't seem to make much sense. General Motors famously made something like $16 on every car that they sold. And socially, they didn't really fix any social problems. If anything, they caused more problems than they solved. They also, products and manufacturing only account for 20% of a Western economy. So at the beginning of Live Work, and we came to the conclusion that we were misguided with all our design efforts focusing on product. The logic went that we really should focus on services. And to make that focus, to make that shift, we had to polarize a service from a product. We had to drive a wedge between them, just so that we could shine a light on services, so that we can interrogate them in isolation, understand them better, and start to design for them. So we created this artificial and arbitrary split between what is a product and what is a service. We actually went one step further and became quite kind of militant in our view, that we decided that products shouldn't exist. In the studio, we banned the word product from any conversation. So some people would come and talk to us, and they'd say, we define a service as a product that people use instead of, and we said, no, we don't want to even talk about service in the context of product. To break that product-dominant logic, we've got to remove the word from the dictionary altogether. So we had this incredibly clear and focused view that services were everything. Services were the only thing that mattered. Services were environmentally sustainable. We weren't throwing services away. They're intangible. How can they damage the planet? Services are financially viable. I think Gartner in 2000 did a massive research project and discovered that a product, the sale of a product, generally only accounts for 20% of its total lifetime value. So if you take a car, the purchase of a car is nothing compared with how much revenue is generated to its insurance, its maintenance, the fuel that goes into it, and all the other tertiary services. And we also thought services were more socially inclusive. Services are fundamentally based on people helping each other. But my view, my personal view on this, I think has softened. Maybe as I'm just getting older, maybe I'm getting wiser. But I think I'm probably just getting older. My view has softened, and I've started to accept that services do exist, but not in isolation. That the real world does have products in it, and it's products that people are still much more closely connected to. Products have that close proximity to the user. So if I'm starting to let products back into my life and my way of thinking, then I've really got to allow the brands and the businesses behind those products to come back in as well, and reluctantly accept that the world of brands inevitably means that we have this thing that I despise, which is marketing communications. I'm a designer, of course I hate marketing, and I know it's a mutual feeling. This is how the world is. Well, it's an abstract illustration of how the world is, but this is how the world operates today, and it's a world that I personally truly hate. I hate being that strange-shaped character in the middle of that illustration. What I hate about it is that the brands make products for us. The products are usually not very good, and so they have to spend a lot of money and time marketing those products to me, convincing me that I should buy a product, telling me that my life will be better, I will feel more fulfilled if I buy that product. Invariably, that product doesn't work particularly well, and so they have to reluctantly provide service to back up that broken and ineffective product. So now I am with my product that I was told was going to make my life better, and then I have to endure a terrible service to try and fix the thing that's inherently broken. And the best thing the brands can do to try and help solve that problem is market to me more products. It's like the answer to your problem is buy more, own more stuff. The more you have, the better you feel. I hate it. It makes me feel totally useless. They describe me as a consumer, and I can't think of a more offensive description. It means that I'm something that just gorges on stuff. I consume, and when you consume, you inevitably, and exhume, is that the right? Anyway, I don't really want to use the word I want to use in public. But if I gorge, if I consume, it makes me feel like I'm nothing, I don't really have a purpose on this world. What a disgusting way to think of ourselves, as these beasts that just want to take more and more in. We don't get any nourishment, any fulfillment out of it. But thankfully, I think the world is changing. I think the world of brands, products, and services are coming together. And if we build on a service-dominant logic that accepts that products exist and that brands exist and services exist, we can create a new way of engaging with businesses, with brands, and with organizations. The notion of brands and products and services are blending. And if the platform of marketing, communications, and advertising was media, I think the platform for service design is technology, network technology. It's the web. As businesses are realizing that the web is not just a thing for the marketing and sale of products, as they realize that they're building products and services out of the web, that's our platform. So it's changing the nature of the relationship between me and the brands. I'm as much of the brand as the brand is of me. This is driving us to real deep engagement. It's changing the nature of services. We're seeing a range of services that are the future services that are coming, that we're starting to see and starting to feel, are services that let us contribute to them. We're not just passive consumers of the next generation of services. We contribute. We're valuable. We're part of the solution. And the products, they're not things that we covet in and of themselves. They're not where the value lies. The products are the things that give us access to the services we need. So we need to start designing products that are all about access. We need to create brands that are truly about engagement, that let me in and operate on my terms, and services that see me as a resource for the service, as a provider of the service and not just a consumer. Now, this is my Miss World speech moment, where I don't think this is just a point of view. I actually think this is our purpose. I want to be in a world where I feel valued and useful. I don't want to be in a world where I'm just seen as a passive, dumb consumer of it. I want to actively engage with it. I want to participate in it. And I want my children to be brought up in a world where they feel that they are needed. And these are some of the services that I'm seeing coming. Some of them have been around for a few years that I think demonstrate some of those values, this new service design purpose. Whipcar is a service in the UK. Car sharing services have been around for 15 years now, and Streetcar, which is now Zipcar, was one of LiveWorks' first ever projects and became the kind of poster child for service design 8 or 9 years ago. But Streetcar put their own Volkswagen Golfs on street corners in London. Whipcar have said, why build new infrastructure? Why don't we take the cars that people already own and allow them to rent them to each other? So you can rent your neighbor's car. It's brilliant. I love the fact that I no longer have to just consume or engage with the service. I can actually contribute. I've got some resource. I've got an asset that I can start to repurpose and reallocate. Zopa, similarly, it's a peer-to-peer banking service. I want to invest money, people want to borrow money, let's bring the two together. That's exactly where banking started, just two people helping each other out. When we wanted to scale banking, we had to centralize it. With network technologies, we don't need to centralize anymore. We can decentralize and take banking back to where it started. Similarly, progressive insurance in the US, the better you drive, the less you pay. Brew Health in the UK. It's health insurance that incentivizes you to lead a more healthy lifestyle. The healthier you live, the lower your premiums on health insurance. Progressive and Brew Health, I don't think show the wider future. They're not letting me contribute to the service, but they are at least responding to my engagement with them. And then finally, a service that I used recently on a trip to Paris, Airbnb, a service that allows people with rooms to let or apartments to let to act as a large global network of hotels. So to summarize, I'll go back to my very first question. Are we still really talking about service design? And of course, the answer is yes. I said that at the beginning. But I also think in some ways, no, we're not. And I think this for two reasons. The version of service design we started talking about 11 years ago, I think some of the foundations of that have fundamentally changed. And I also, most importantly, and it goes back to something Blunstone pointed out right at the beginning, you guys here, 90% of you are practitioners. When we first started talking about service design, 90% of you would have been academics. No disrespect to academics. I think teaching is one of the most important things we can do in our lives. But it shows to me that we're not just talking about it anymore, we're actually doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hello. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So we have a couple of minutes for Q&A, questions. Anybody? This raises lots of questions.
If anyone wants to know what happened to my eye, by the way, for those of you that I was talking to earlier this morning, or anyone sat near the front, this isn't anything heroic. This isn't cage fighting. I got stung by a bee at the weekend. I don't normally look like I've got one eye shut, so.
Damn it. I just wanted to refer to that he's like also pro in mixed martial arts. Well, so really no questions, people? I can't believe it.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for your talk, which I think was really inspiring, especially this shift from the traditional design model to the more lean, more active model. I have a question regarding the tool you showed for Nokia. So if I understood right, you developed a visualization of the behavior of people in the store so that Nokia can become more lean with their own services and experience they're providing in the store?
Yeah.
Can you tell more about what innovation Nokia came up with this tool by using it?
There's actually very little innovation in it. It's just a bit of common sense that it applies to any data that you can collect from people in store, particularly when stores have got touchscreen kiosks and interactive elements. When you pick up a phone and you start interacting with it, in the past they've been dumb, kind of lightweight dummy copies. Now they tend to be real phones. So we just connected those up to a database. We could see what people are clicking on those phones. So what kinds of services are they playing with? What elements of the interface are they playing with? They've got touch screens on the wall that are like sales, interactive posters, sales pitches. What is it people are interested in there? Is it services? Is it phone features? Is it phone formats? And just connect all that data, collect it. If anyone touches, interacts with anything, we collect it, analyze it, and then they can start responding. The store can start responding and adapting to the way people want to use it. It's not the long-term future, but it's just, I think, a nice step to show that we're starting to analyze service spaces in use and adapt the experience on the fly.
Thank you. Please, another applause for Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.